Hey guys, welcome back to A Matter of Life and Maiden, the podcast of the Beast. I'm Joe Labriola.
And I'm Matt Wagner.
And today we're going to be talking about No Prayer for the Dying, the 1990 Iron Maiden album. The first album to feature new guitarist Yannick Gears after the departure of Adrian Smith after Seventh Son.
Oh boy.
Let's dive in. Well, let me preface before we dive in here, actually.
This is quite the transition.
Matt and I love Iron Maiden, our all-time favorite band, because of those classic 80s albums that we've talked to up to this point, all the way from Iron Maiden in 1980 to Seventh Son in 1988. All phenomenal albums. There's no argument that they're all good albums.
I love them.
There's nothing bad about those albums. They're great. 1990, it's a different story. In the 90s, this is the dark ages for Maiden. A lot of personal struggles with the band, a lot of struggles in the metal genre across the world. Grunge music explodes.
Yeah.
Alternative music and that pop punk stuff comes. You have this kind of metal kind of fades into the background, and as mighty as Maiden was in the 80s, they're kind of not as prominent here in the 90s. And really, I just mentioned it. The departure of Adrian is a big reason why. I mean, he is a hell of a songwriter. And you might not notice it when this album comes out, but as the years go on, you'll see the reasons why. So, No Prayer, man. What do you think about the first song on the album, Tell Gunner? What's your reaction to that great masterpiece of a song?
Some sarcasm there. Wow. I mean, you get like whiplash going from Seventh Son until No Prayer for the Dying. Wow. I mean, it's hard to ignore the fact that not only is like the music not quite as good as it was in the 80s, but the sound of the album is completely different. It's like during Tell Gunner, Bruce has like this like raspy, I don't even know what to call it. Like it
kind of reminds me, Matt and I were talking about this before, this raspy thing that Bruce does. He does it on some of his solo works. Tattoo Millionaire, his first album came out in 1990 as well, at the same time as No Prayer. And he has a little bit of raspiness to that, too. I think, after just talking about it with Matt, that I think Steve might have wanted to, try to get an edge and try to be more alternative sounding and try to be more grungy sounding. And I think that makes the band suffer. Also, Bruce's vocals on this kind of sound like he's trying to emulate Paul Di'Anno, which is weird. Because Paul had like a growliness to him, and Bruce never had that. And I don't know if that was a decision by Steve, if that was a decision by Bruce. I have no idea what that was about.
We were just listening, like you said, we were listening to some of Bruce's solo stuff from the early 90s, and he does the same thing. Like, he has that graspy voice, and I'm just thinking he, like, blew his voice out during the Seventh Son tour or something. Like, in the Seventh Son album, you can kind of hear it in parts, Bruce's voice kind of becoming graspy. And I think maybe he just, from all the touring, I mean, how many hundreds and hundreds of shows did they do in the 80s?
Seventh son of a seventh son, seventh son of a seventh son, seventh son of a seventh son, seventh son of a seventh son. Think about singing that like 100 plus times. I mean, yeah, he couldn't even sing it live sometimes on stage. You'd have to have, like, he would just say, the crowd would just fill in for him because we talked about this on, like, the Number of the Beast album and even on the Power Slave album where we reviewed those and, like, how extensive touring is and how much he has to sing. Like, being a singer in this band is probably the hardest job. There is no time. You can't sit your voice down. You can change a bass string. You can't do that with your voice. I mean, you have to be that way all the time. And
yeah, it's by far the most demanding position of the band to be in every single night.
Now, however, with that being said, though, I mean, that still doesn't excuse the glaring misfortunes that this album has.
This does not sound like classic Maiden at all. It doesn't sound like new wave of British heavy metal at all. It doesn't sound to me like heavy metal, period.
This album, yeah, I agree with you. This album is kind of a jokey, corny album, too. I mean, Matt and I were just talking about this earlier. Bruce said he went into some like Adult World shop or some like sex shop or something, and some of the songs on here like Tell Gunner, Public Enema #1, some of the other stuff, Hooks in You, I think he said he saw some like, he went into some weird sex shop and there was like hooks hanging at the ceiling and he thought it was like some weird kinky S&M kind of stuff or whatever. It's just a jokey kind of corny album and it really doesn't work. I mean, if it's something they tried, it's definitely something that, yeah, it's definitely not good.
I know, we're like having trouble, because I'm like Joe, I love Iron Maiden. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing this like podcast if we didn't like love Iron Maiden, like even more than like most people love one of their bands that they like. I don't like saying negative stuff about Iron Maiden because I don't like being a negative person like that. But it's hard to not talk about it when you talk about No Prayer for the Dying, which I think me and Joe would agree that
Bruce probably agrees too, let's be honest.
The whole band might agree that this is probably the worst thing that Maiden's ever done.
No, Matt and I have debates constantly where we kind of fluctuate between this, and more recently I've come to appreciate the later stuff with Blaze, but
because, like, we even talked about, like, because of, they had Bruce Dickinson, who's arguably, the best metal singer of all time. At least, like, up there with Halford, as, like, anybody's list of being, like, one of the 2 best metal singers of all time. And personally, my favorite. I mean, for that to go from, like, Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son and to this, with Bruce, is hard to ignore that, like, they didn't, like, underachieve to an extreme degree.
And I would never call Iron Maiden sellouts. I would never say that about them. They never sold out. But I will say this: this is something that they experimented with, and this is the way I see it. Steve, Bruce, and Adrian's no longer there. They get Yannick. They have Davey. It's something they try to do different. Something they try to do that might have been a little unique. And honestly, I don't want to say sellout, but they try to be more mainstream, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
Fit into the grunge vein, fit into the punk vein, and it just does not work.
I remember reading a interview by Steve, and he was upset at the American metal fans because they didn't like Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son as much as they like Peace of Mind and Power Slave and Number of the Beast. They thought it sounded too European, it sounded too progressive. They didn't like it. So maybe that, like, commercially, like, financially, maybe Steve was pressured into trying something different to get the American music fans more interested in their music.
Which, as we know nowadays, looking back in hindsight, it didn't work. And Adrian, if you watch the History DVD Part 3 on the Made in England release, 2013 DVD release, Adrian says, I wanted to be more progressive, I wanted to stay more progressive, and I think we would have sold more albums that way. And then the last line he says is, then before I knew it, I wasn't even in the band anymore. That's kind of what happens. I mean, what about Holy Smoke? I mean, the same kind of stuff I have to say about Tug with Holy Smoke. I mean, I'll be honest, it's kind of catchy. The lyrics are kind of catchy, but it's nowhere near, like, caliber-wise of any of the stuff that has come before it.
Holy Smoke was probably, like, in the 90s, their most mainstream hit. Maybe along with Bring Your Daughter. Now, like, I do like some of the Holy Smoke lyrics. I will say that there are catchy lyrics.
I do. I mean, it's about some of the... I mean, like we talked about before, Maiden is a very... They talk about politics, they talk about religion, they talk about a plethora of stuff, and this is one of those things where they're talking about, like... I don't know, what's your take on it, man?
Not that, like, Holy Smoke's, like, my favorite song or anything, but I think this is actually a song where Bruce's, like, raspy voice actually, like, makes sense in singing. Like, I can't see, like, 80s operatic Bruce singing this as well, which, like, I don't know if that's, like, a hit on the song or anything, but that like, good Bruce couldn't sing it. But, like, I like the lyrics, like, starts out, like, believe in me, send no money, I died on the cross, that ain't funny. I think the lyrics are actually, like, pretty catchy and good in the song. The only thing I don't like about this, or one of the things I don't like about this song is the chorus is really bad.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things I was reading somewhere. They're trying to, like, talk about some political figure or something who was against some things that were, like, really liberal. They were kind of chastising them. There's one line in there, like, Jimmy Reptile and his friends or something like that.
Yeah, we weren't, like, really around. Well, we were around, but we weren't really, like, watching, like, news in the early 90s, but there were a lot of, like, these, big-time preachers, like telemarketer preachers that would go on TV and talk to people, and they'd ask for money for their church, and you give them $10 and they pray for you, or some people send $50 and they'll pray for you, and it was a scam. I mean, let's be honest, like, it's a scam. Yeah. Like, you shouldn't have to send anybody money for them to pray for you.
In the chorus, when he says making holy smoke, that's what he's talking about, like Matt just said. It's like this illusion that it's just smoke and it's just going to... What's smoke do? Like, it evaporates and it flies away. Like, basically, this holiness that you're selling isn't even real holiness. It's just, like, money that you're trying to get because you want to, like, basically increase your coffers and your pockets. Like, it's not really helping anybody. It's a scam, like Matt said. So
yeah, I like the shot, too. He says, burning records, burning books, holy soldiers, Nazi looks. Crocodile smiles, just wait a while till the TV queen gets her makeup clean. Like, those people, they were around, they're still around. Like, those, like I said, they were kind of like religious telemarketers, and they were kind of like taking shots at him, Iron Maiden was. Yeah. And, like, nothing not like speaking anything about religion or anything, but it's just like those people are not good people.
Yeah, and it also talks about not even just religion, but also like the fact of being fake, like being the superficial person that isn't even really who you are. Like the makeup line, putting makeup on just to cover up who you really are. Like you're not really the real person that you're trying to portray. It's like you're just a bullshitter. It's like a mask.
Yeah, like the line, "I've lived in filth, I've lived in sin, and I still smell cleaner than the shit
you're in."
Yeah, that's probably my favorite line. Probably my favorite line of the whole album.
Yeah.
Like I think that's like them talking like, hey, you know what? Like we've been on the road, we've drank, we've done drugs, we've slept with groupies, we've done a lot of bad stuff, and we're still better. We're still better than you guys. Like you guys are the worst, taking advantage of like these old people that just are looking for hope, and you're just taking their money, and they don't have any money. I said it, said some nice things, Joe. Like
other than the lyrical message portrayed in that song, the guitar solo isn't that strong. The music itself is thin.
Bruce's vocals aren't
great. I mean, like the raspiness is cool for the song, but
the music video is terrible.
The music video is horrible.
But I tried to say good. I'm trying.
No, it does have that quality. I mean, you're right. If you take it for what it is, and you completely eliminate Iron Maiden's history in the '80s, and you just focus on this, I mean, it's a good song.
Yeah, actually, this is one thing I wanted to say. Like I was thinking about the other day, is that we're not judging this on just like a music standard, like any music, like we're just like a music critic where we just take a piece of music and we just listen to it for what it is. We're critiquing this on like as Iron Maiden fans, comparing it to other Iron Maiden songs, comparing it to other Iron Maiden albums. Yeah, so it's a different scale. It is. We are like putting it on a really tough curve.
It's almost like what we talked about with Seventh Son. Like we're working in a framework of a concept here, and our concept is Iron Maiden. We're not straying from that concept. Right. We're within the umbrella that is Iron Maiden and the work that they've produced and their corpus of materials. We have to sit there and basically figure out, in our opinion, why these albums or why these songs don't equate to the stuff that they've done prior. And this is a shining example of that.
We got to point out the good, and we got to point out the bad. We pointed out the bad with Invaders and Gangland and stuff like that. We said when stuff and everything in the 80s that was bad, we pointed out and we focused on, and stuff that was good, obviously, we talked about. And same thing here. We're talking about all the good stuff. We're going to mention it. We're going to talk about all the bad stuff, too.
It's just in the 90s, there's a lot more bad stuff.
Unfortunately.
Which is unfortunate, but like we said, there's reasons why.
Like, I don't want to talk about the bad stuff. I don't want to do it, but we got to do it. We set the podcast. We're going to review all 16 albums. That's what we're going to do.
What about the title track, "No Prayer for the Dying"?
It's one of the better songs on the album. I don't know if it's like a good song, but I would say it's listenable. Like I listen to it every once in a while.
Yeah, I listen to it once in a while too. I think it has some. There's some character to it, which I really like. I do like Bruce's vocals in this.
I will say this is one of the compared to like out of the 290s albums they do with Bruce, it's probably one of the better ones he does because you actually like can feel the emotion in his voice. It's not generic.
Yeah, he's not really raspy on this either. I think he's more clean on the song than he is on the rest of the album, which is good because that's what Bruce sounds like.
I think it's like probably the most emotional sounding song that Iron Maiden does until like Thin Line Between Love and Hate. It's like right around there. Like it's not a typical Iron Maiden song that they do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I like the lyrics in the song. I like Matt said, it's one of the stronger songs on the album. But really, I don't want to sit here and like beat the crap out of the song. There are a couple lines in it that I like. I like the verses. There are times when I wondered. There's times when I cried. My prayers, they were answered. Times when I've lied. If you ask me a question, would I tell you the truth? Now there's something to bet on. You got nothing to lose. And I like that part.
Yeah, I agree. Like the lyrics in this song are probably like its strongest point. But like I guess that being said though, like I wouldn't consider it like a good song. Out of the No Prayer, the Dying Curve, it's like one of the better songs on the album, I think.
It's like walking a long road, but never reach in the end.
I remember me and you used to make up our own lyrics to the song. It's an easy song to just make up your own lyrics and joke around with.
Well, here's a little story. We'll fill in the mediocre tidbits of this album with a story. Matt and I went to a concert. I think we saw Queensryche, another band similar to the vein of Maiden. Jeff Tate obviously took influence from Bruce Dickinson.
Oh yeah.
We went to Don Pablo's. Shout out to Don Pablo. I don't even know if there's any of those chains available anymore, but there was one near Pittsburgh. Like I said, we're from close to Pittsburgh, about 2 hours east of it, and we went to Don Pablo's and got some Mexican food, and whatever was in that food just made us like super hyper. And I don't know if it was cocaine or crack or whatever, but
whatever those Mexicans put in it.
I think we played that entire No Prayer for the Dying. We played it probably 15, 16, 17, maybe 20, possibly 20 times on the way home and on repeat, and just made up lyrics.
Yeah. Most of which we probably can't repeat.
Yeah, they were pretty bad. Hilarious, but it was a highlight of that trip.
And I always had a special place in my heart for this song after that, you know?
Yeah, it's something we experienced together. It was cool, to have that on a road trip. And
I always think about that when I...
When you hear No Prayer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. That's the quality we have with our little personal relationship. Other than that, let's move on to Public Enema #1.
Oh God!
I gotta just jump. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off there. I am. There is no redeeming quality to the song whatsoever. There's nothing about this song that I.
This is the worst Iron Maiden song up until this point. Maybe ever.
It could be ever. It is. There is the title itself is utter. It's disappointing to see that, and I don't know. It's laughable almost. If Maiden's trying to be funny, they're not. It's not funny. It's not.
It's not funny. It's not funny. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. I don't really. I'm trying to think of something nice. I don't know.
There is nothing nice about it, man. I mean, I can't. I know you're trying to look for something good. There's nothing funny.
The chorus is all right.
It's okay.
Fall on your knees today. Pray the world will mend its ways. I don't know.
Yeah. Even that's not that great.
Yeah. This is like trying to find, something nice to say about an ugly girl,
Exactly. The rest of this album is in the vein of Public Enema #1. There might be one more bright spot on here, maybe two. The rest of the album suffers from the Public Enema #1 syndrome.
Yeah, let's just...
Fate's Warning. I mean, I'm sorry to jump ahead, man, but I can't, there's nothing I can say about Public Enema #1. Or Fate's Warning, for that matter, that even... I don't really... Like I said, I'm not, trying to be a negative person and be or if you're out there and this is one of your favorite albums, maybe this album came out and you were 14, this was the first Iron Maiden album you knew that came out and you went and bought, and maybe you're man, I really like the Fate's Warning or whatever, I feel bad, I don't want to trash your favorite album or your childhood or something, but yeah, we don't want to trash you either, but I mean, if you're telling me that Fate's Warning is better than Hallowed Be Thy Name,
no, I mean, I don't think anybody.
I don't think anybody else is there.
Nobody's saying that. I don't think, but if we're looking at this in a bubble, this is just if you're just driving down the road and you're just listening to this song, you never heard Iron Maiden, you're listening to this album. It's not bad. It's not Toss It Out of Your Car bad. It's not Metallica Saint Anger bad. It's just we're Iron Maiden fans. We know what the band can do. And when you have a song like Fate's Warning, that's not what the band can do. Even without it, Adrian Smith is the elephant in the room here. He is a huge reason why that this is just not good. We always mentioned before, with Adrian Smith, Iron Maiden never put out a bad album. And we just talked about it today. With Adrian Smith and Bruce Dickinson's solo works, the two best albums that he did in his solo career have Adrian Smith playing guitar on. Yeah. And there's a big reason why those two are great and why every album he's ever done with Maiden's been great, because he just brings that class and musicianship, and I think he could be just brutally honest, hey guys, this isn't good, we shouldn't use this. I don't know, maybe he has that kind of ear, Maiden fans aren't gonna like this. You can see that in the Flight 666 DVD when he's playing and he gets upset because they play the songs too fast live. He feels like they're playing them too quick. He's very, and Bruce says he can pick notes out of thin air. Nobody else can do it besides Adrian. Matt's right. He has that quiet, subtle ability about him to just know what's good and what's not good. Not that he's not the best writer in the band. That's Steve. He brings the band up with. He raises everybody up with him, I think. Exactly. And if you're thinking about Steve, I mean, that's arguable. I don't know. He might be. I think a team. I think Steve, Adrian, and Bruce together have always turned out pretty amazing stuff. Especially the new stuff. They've always wrote the best stuff. They have turned those three guys together, turned out the greatest stuff. And I just don't think Steve had that. Yeah, because I think Adrian and Steve have that music ability to write good music, instrumentally music that's good, and I think Bruce along with Steve have that lyrical ability. Especially, I think I think Bruce does. Bruce has a way with lyrics and words that's really, really good. Now, obviously, on this album, I can't really, like, defend that too well, but I think overall, like, his work as a musician, like, would prove that.
Yeah, and we talked about that before. Steve...
Maybe Adrian helps Bruce with, like, melodies and stuff with the lyrics, you know? Possible. Like, Adrian just knows what sounds good. And a lot of musicians don't know what, to the general... public will sound good. They don't have that ability. They know what they think sounds good, but they don't know what the average music fan's going to think sounds good.
And no offense to Yannick or Dave, but actually, honestly, Steve will form a really good relationship with Yannick on the post-reunion albums and the reunion album Brave New World. They have a really, really strong relationship, and they write really good stuff together. But that doesn't happen until the year 2000. That doesn't happen until the reunion.
Yeah, Yannick's not a good writer in the 90s.
Right now, he's not that great. It's going to take him like 8 or 9 years to actually churn out some good stuff. And when he does, in his defense, everything he's written since the reunion forward has been excellent. And there's nothing bad that he's ever written, barring maybe 1 or 2 songs. But still, even with that being said, Adrian still writes more songs that are more coherent and more Maiden sounding. Davey, not so much, but he shreds. So, what about The Assassin? Wow. What about Run Son Run Deep? Let's just skip that one. Oh my god.
I think The Assassin's probably is like one of the worst choruses of any Iron Maiden song they've ever wrote.
The Assassin is
I'm the Assassin.
The Assassin might be
I'm the Assassin.
The worst song they've ever done.
Period. It's up there with Public Enema. Even I would say Public Enema is a better chorus.
I think it does too. The Assassin's bad.
I don't want to like focus on it too much, but yeah, it's about as bad as anything Iron Maiden's ever wrote. It's so generic. It's really, really, really bad.
Run Silent, Run Deep.
Hey, you know what? This is my favorite song off the album. I'll just say, I think Run Silent, Runs Deep sounds the most like classic Maiden out of any song on the album.
I agree with you.
It sounds like, the reason why I probably like it a lot is it kind of sounds like Peace of Mind, Maiden.
It does have a little bit of Peace of Mind vibe to it. And this is like the first song that's about a historical thing, about U-boats and submarine warfare,
like classic
and
Maiden,
Navy stuff that isn't a joke. Like Tail Gunner is basically like, it's an allusion to, obviously sexual stuff, and World War II and World War I fighter pilots put together.
But it's not a joke. That song's like trying to be funny.
Exactly.
It's a joking way. This isn't trying to be funny.
Run Silent, Run Deep is a more serious, like you said, a very Peace of Mind sounding song. I mean, it could have been on Peace of Mind. It does. It's good.
I love like everything about this song, pretty much. Like, I
love the chorus.
I love the chorus. I love the verses. I love the vocals. I like the guitar. That dun 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 dun. Like, it's got that. I love the bass. Steve's bass at the beginning. I mean, like I said, this to me is like classic Maiden. This is what the whole album should have sounded like.
Running silent, running deep, we are your final prayer.
It probably is Bruce's best vocal performance on the album. It has the Steve's best bass playing on the album. It has everything. Like, everything about the album. This is probably like the best song on the album.
And I like how they tie in like pirate mythology with it. They talk about like Davy Jones' locker. It's kind of in there. I like that.
Yeah, it's probably the only song I consistently would listen to off this whole album.
It's a shame that the song is on this album. Yeah. Like, it's a shame that it's on this album.
Now, that being said, I'm not saying this is a great song. I'm just saying it's a good song. It's like, it's a song that I like. Even in Iron Maiden standards, it's a song I listen to. Like, it's a good song.
Hooks in you.
I mean,
hooks in me.
I mean, it's better than Public Enema. It's better than Fate's Warning. It's better than The Assassin. It's about the nicest things I can say about it.
Hooks and You is pretty bad. One thing they mentioned about Hooks and You is actually written by Adrian Smith before he left, and they used it on this album. Some people say that it's the third part of the Charlotte the Harlot saga after 22 Acacia Avenue.
I don't know.
Sure or not?
I don't know. I would hope not, because it's bad. Yeah, instead of talking about this song, what do you think about them, like, before they end as a band, like, doing a Charlotte the Harlot song? Like, another one in the future?
Like, as a part of the trilogy?
Yeah, like the end of the trilogy. Let's say this isn't part of the trilogy. Let's say they do Charlotte the Harlot, 22 Acacia Avenue, and before, like, say their next album's their last album, would you like to see a Charlotte the Harlot song on there? To complete the circle?
With you,
a song on their first album, a song on their last album?
I don't know, maybe. I mean, it'd be cool.
You ever thought about that?
I mean, I have. I did always count this as a third one, though, because I think Bruce and Adrian did mention it before.
I think we should erase it.
We should. I agree with you. Even so, I don't think anything that they can do is going to touch 22 Occasion.
Not that like Charlotte the Harlot has like this like mythical lore and touring Iron Maiden fans. You know, like not everybody out there is dying for one, but I just thought it'd be like interesting for them to like go for full circle, complete the trilogy in the right way. Obviously, 22 Occasion Avenue is a far superior song than Charlotte the Harlot, but
let alone Hooks in You.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather listen to Charlotte the Harlot than Hooks in You.
Hooks in You,
one of the hooks in me.
Bring your daughter to the slaughter.
I mean, I would. It's one of the better songs on the album. I wouldn't mind hearing it live. I think it does. It plays a lot better live. They did it in the first reunion tour with Bruce. They played it, and I think it's one of their, along with Holy Smoke, it was probably their like biggest hit off of the whole album.
Yeah, and the reason this is so good too is because it kind of touches on that stuff that Iron Maiden initially talks about in the first couple albums. In Iron Maiden and Killers and Number of the Beast. Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter was actually used, I think, Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the movies they use it.
Yeah.
It's Bruce's version of a horror song, and it kind of works. And it sounds like Maiden. Like, it sounds like Maiden. It's a horror-themed song. It sounds like earlier Maiden stuff.
My favorite part of the song is when they do that, like, bring your daughter, fetch your daughter, bring your daughter. And then they do that, and Bruce does that, yeah. That's my favorite part of the song. I think, like, I wouldn't say it's a bad song. It's like, I'd say it's like mediocre to average.
Yeah, and sad enough to say that we just said it was one of the best songs on the album, mediocre to average. So there you go.
Yeah.
You basically have...
My third favorite song, and it's mediocre.
It's probably... Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter is probably my second favorite song on the album, behind Run Silent, Run Deep. And then probably Holy Smoke.
My favorite's Run Silent, Run Deep, and probably...
Well, I guess if you're including No Prayer in that vein...
I'd probably like the No Prayer song, maybe. But that might have just a personal connection because we always made fun of the lyrics.
Yeah, so that's not that we made fun of it.
Yeah.
So was it really that great? I mean,
maybe not. I just say, like, personally, it's one of my favorite songs. Would you like to hear this song live someday? Would that be a song that you would?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to hear anything from the 90s live, except for a couple actual hidden gems that are on some of the later 90s
the X
stuff.
Factor.
Like the X Factor, Virtual 11. And honestly... Afraid to See Strangers, Afraid of the Dark, next album.
So there's nothing off the song you'd want to see, or this whole album that you'd want to see live?
There's nothing on this album that I would ever want to see live. Now, I'm happy with
We've never seen anything.
Thank God. I'm happy we haven't. Because I honestly, I
don't believe they ever played Run Silent, Run Deep live. I don't think that was a song they ever played live. So
as awesome as that song is on this album, still would rather hear other stuff over that. Like,
yeah, I hear you.
Mother Russia.
Yeah, I mean, this is like their attempt to be epic on the album, and it's like really bad. Yeah, it's bad. I mean, what else can you say? It's just bad.
The rush. What
a terrible way to end a terrible album.
Yeah. Honestly, it's sad. It's sad when you think about it. This is not the Iron Maiden.
I mean, you went from the epic Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, great epic, to next album has Mother Russia as your epic.
Nothing about Mother Russia is it's 5.5 minutes long. It is the longest song on the album at 5.5 minutes.
Yeah, let's talk about Steve's decision here to go from a progressive sounding longer songs to, I don't know, like a mix of the Iron Maiden Killers albums and what?
Some kind of comedic side of it to it. I mean, some sexual innuendo stuff. I don't know.
What was going on with Steve that he thought this was a good idea? Without a doubt, probably besides, a few huge names, like he's up there with Ozzy and, Ronnie James Dio as being like on the Mount Rushmore of metal personalities.
Yeah, and if you're talking about bass players too, you're talking about Rush from
Geddy Lee.
Geddy Lee from Rush. You're talking about Chris Squire from Yes. He's Lemmy from Motorhead.
Yeah,
he's arguably
up there.
One of the greatest bass players. He's in at least the top 5 of like every bass player list you ever look at. Greatest bass players of all time.
And not only that, he's the leader of the band. Like he is Iron Maiden, and he like made this decision to do this. And part of this decision cost them Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith would not have left the band if they would have continued, playing their progressive sounding music. Like he wanted the band to evolve like musically higher and higher, and Steve said we're gonna go in like this 180-degree. I mean, it's like, it's not even back to like Peace of Mind or Number of the Beast sound. It's like
completely different direction.
I don't even know I don't know.
It's off there in left field. It's like nowhere to be found. And I think it goes back to what you said earlier when we were making this episode about people over here in America didn't like Somewhere in Time and Seven Son. I think, like you said, that has something to do with it. But I think there's other things at play, which we'll talk about on the Fear of the Dark album, because we'll get more into some of the personal problems the band's experienced. I can touch on one thing. Bruce gets divorced in 1987, right before Seven Son's being recorded. Yeah. So, as a human being, when you get divorced, I mean, you're probably going to have moments of depression and sadness of why your marriage didn't work. I mean, it happens. He might not showcase it instantaneously, but
yeah, creatively, it's going to come out. It's come out real negative.
Creatively,
this came out pretty negative.
And another thing, Bruce gets remarried in 1990, though. I don't know if he got remarried before the album came out or after the album came out. So, if it was after the album came out, then there might have been a time in his life where he just didn't care. He was depressed, and like Matt said, his creative input is skewed to be kind of quirky and goofy, and it just doesn't work.
Well, I mean, gets us down to like trying to figure out a grade for this album.
Well, and, we got to do
the album covers, yeah.
We got to do the album cover stuff yet.
All right, let's do that. Well, obviously, the album cover's gonna redeem the whole album, right?
No. Not this time.
No.
This could be one of the worst, in my opinion, one of the worst Iron Maiden album covers ever. It is...
I would say, like, we're talking like this, the second, maybe worst, third worst, maybe.
Second or third worst out of the covers.
At least third.
Another thing with the thing that they did with this when they rebooted Eddie and they did No Proof of Dying is they took away all the previous stuff that happened. So he no longer has lobotomy. He's not a robot anymore. He doesn't have any like cybernetic parts.
Yeah, it's definitely symbolic of the shift in the band, period.
Exactly. It's a shift to do something different, and it obviously doesn't work. There's two different covers. The original cover had Eddie coming out of a grave and grabbing like a grave digger by the throat. And then they did the remastered release version has just Eddie coming out of a grave. He's not grabbing a grave digger.
I like the remastered version.
I personally like the original version a little bit better, but at the same time, it's nowhere near on par with any of the stuff that has come before.
It's not.
It's up to this point, it is the worst Iron Maiden album cover they've done.
What would you give the cover grade if you had to give it out of 10?
The cover grade?
Yeah.
Out of 10? I'm giving it like a 3. Giving it a 3 out of 10.
Yeah. I was thinking like a 2.5. Yeah, it's pretty bad. I'm a little harsher grader than you, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's a 3. It's a 3 for me. Another thing about this album is, too, they no longer... They went to Munich, Germany and recorded Seventh Son in an amazing studio. Before that, they were in Compass Point for Somewhere in Time and Power Slave. I think Peace of Mind... I can't remember if Peace of Mind was at Compass Point or not. Might have been. Before that, they had great studios in the UK that they recorded Number of the Beast, Battery Studios. I can't remember if Peace of Mind was Compass Point or Battery. Either way, they utilized these great sounding studios. After Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, when they recorded that in Germany, Steve bought some barn that was, I think the Rolling Stones used it as they converted it into a studio, like a little home studio. Steve bought it in the UK. It was his property, his studio, and they recorded most of the 90s stuff in here. I think all the 90s stuff in this barn. It's called Barnyard Studios.
Sounds like it was recorded in the barn.
It was a barn converted into a studio. And Bruce has said in interviews after the reunion, if you watch any stuff with him coming back, like right after Brave New World comes out and they go on that huge Brave New World tour, he says he did not like the sound in that barn. And so thank you, Bruce, for telling Steve that the barn sound sucked, because then they started to go to studios again, and they record Brave New World in Guillaume Tel Studios in Paris, which is probably one of the greatest studios they've recorded in besides Compass Point. I would arguably, they recorded Brave New World there, they recorded Book of Souls there, and Compass Point they did Power Slave, Somewhere in Time. I mean, it's iconic stuff versus Barnyard Studios.
And Martin Birch was the producer for this. He was the producer for every great Iron Maiden album in the 80s. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, what happened? I mean, it doesn't sound good at all. It does not sound... Production sucks.
There's only... then again, though, in Martin Birch's defense, you can only do so much with a song if it's...
With the stuff you're given, yeah.
This stuff, this subject matter and this stuff, it's not good. It's not made its best. The single covers, the Holy Smoke cover...
Better than the album cover, I guess.
Better than the album cover, but I'm still pretty good. Eddie holding a TV, throwing it in a bunch of fire with a bunch of other TVs on fire.
Yeah.
Not a fan. The Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter.
I mean, it's definitely like a throwback to the original Iron Maiden album.
Mm-hmm. There's one there.
Yeah.
Is that Jessica Rabbit? Kind of looks like from Roger Rabbit with Eddie.
Yeah, it does look like that, and it's probably like one of the more sexual covers they've ever done.
Hence the theme of the album. That sexual innuendo stuff.
It's got the little Batman sign on it, out in the on the moon.
I think it's probably the best cover from the entire catalog of the stuff from their.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool.
I do like the Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter sleeve, but that's the artwork. With that being said,
we already said production sucks.
Production's garbage. Probably the worst production they've ever had, period.
Listenability, Joe. What do you think about the listenability?
Listenability is garbage.
Yeah.
Not at all listenable.
If listenability is the ability to listen to a whole album without skipping a song.
Yeah.
This is the opposite of that. This is the ability to listen to an album. I don't know.
This is the ability to try to listen to this album consecutively, but you're constantly skipping songs.
This is like anti-listenability.
It's a bad album. Yeah. How many songs are on the album? 10? And there's 3 that are listenable.
Like, not even good. They're not even good songs.
They're mediocre songs.
They're just listenable.
3 out of 10. And you know what? That's where I stand with the album.
3 out of 10?
3 out of 10 is what I'm giving the album. In my opinion, this is the worst Iron Maiden album ever.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the lowest score I've given an Iron Maiden album so far, I think I gave Killers a 7 out of 10. Yeah, this is, the number in my head before you said 3 was 2.5. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 10. I mean, it's sad. Like, it pains me to do that. Like, I don't like doing it, but...
I don't like giving it a 3 either, man, but when you're talking about all the stuff that we talked about...
Yeah. I think I said every nice thing about this album that I possibly could.
Another thing about it we kind of touched on a little bit was, where's the guitar solo at, man? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, Maiden was built on, like, guitar solos and songs about history and epics. Those are like the things that Iron Maiden's known for. The guitar solos on this album suck. The epics are nowhere to be seen, and the one that you would call an epic sucks. The songs about history and literature, I mean, there's Run Silent, Run Deep, which is probably the best song on the album. Is the only one that like I would consider kind of like a history classic Maiden.
That's it. That is the only one. There is nothing else. This album lacks life. It lacks feeling. And another thing about it is, where's that connection with the fans? Where's that passion that the band has? I mean, it's almost dried up. Matt mentioned Martin Birch. Even he doesn't even love the album. I mean, he's like, okay, I guess if Steve wants it, I'll do it. You know, like there's no passion, there's no fire, there's no drive. It's a flop. It's a dud. I mean, I can't imagine listening to Iron Maiden for 10 years in 1980 and 1990. This album comes out.
Yeah, getting it out of the record. Don't mind the cassette at the record store.
I've been
bringing
so
it home.
excited to listen to it and put it in and just be like, what the fuck is this? I would have been like, wow, this is horrible.
Can you imagine waiting 2 years from Seventh Son to this? Like, being excited?
Yeah, and like I said, I would have thought to myself.
I would have probably cried.
Wow, this is Iron Maiden? What happened?
I would have probably literally cried.
What happened to Iron Maiden? But hey, guys, Matt's giving No Prayer for the Dying a 2.5 out of 10. I'm giving it a 3. I think we both agree it's the worst Iron Maiden album of all time. Like we said earlier, if you feel differently about it, you know, everybody has their own opinion. Matt and I like the classic stuff a lot. If you listen to our podcast, episode 0, we talk about the reasons why we love the old stuff and the newer stuff so much. But hey, I'm actually looking forward to, if you're going to argue that No Prayer is better than what we give it, or it's your favorite album, please tell us why. Because I have no idea what redeeming qualities are on this album. So... Yeah. I would be interested to hear what you would have to say.
Yeah, that definitely changed my mind. Maybe I don't know. I don't see how, but
we would love to hear what you had to say, because for us, as musicians, as historians, as Maiden fans, as people in general, this does nothing for me at all. So, but hey, guys, thanks for listening again. This has been A Matter of Life in Maiden, the podcast of the Beast. I'm Joe Labriola,
and I'm Matt Wagner.
Next time, A Light in the Black, or just a Fear of the Dark. Take care, guys.